All right, everyone's favorite off-season wrestling topic, I think it's everyone's favorite, is the transfer portal, right? Who's going to jump in? Who's going to go where? Who's offering who to what to whatever? I can't lie. It is fascinating. It's interesting. And more than anything, it's impactful. You're right. This is changing teams. You look at the top four teams outside of Cornell. Shout out Mike Gray and Cornell. All these teams had huge impact transfers, right? And so you think about that. Yeah, this is shifting the trophies. This is shifting the top five. This is shifting who's getting All-Americans. It's important, right? And in previous years, we'd seen, huge numbers of All-Americans jump in the portal. It feels like, feels like it's been a little slower this year, right? And I think it's slowing down, and I think it's going to slow down more and more as time moves on. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But first, I'll get into kind of the big names that have jumped in the portal so far. Connor McGonigal from Lehigh. What's his story? Well, if you've been following along, this guy was ranked 5th, I think, to come into this season. And he lost his starting job to Ryan Crookham, who had an undefeated regular season, beat Vito Arujau twice, placed 3rd at NCAAs. So the writing's on the wall there for Connor. He's a 33-pounder, and Crookham was a freshman, so that's it. So he's not going to start there, and going back and forth with Ryan Crookham for the next years of his career doesn't make a lot of sense. So he's jumping in the portal as a 33-pounder. And you look at the 33 landscape, this is an example. He should be transferring, right? I'm sure Lehigh probably I doubt there's bad blood there. It's like, hey, man, this just makes sense. You're not going to be able to start here. You're not going to be able to wrestle here. There's not an opportunity, so go. And then you look at someone like another big name that jumped in the portal right after NCAAs was Dean Hamady. And if you look at his production, he has not progressed probably to the point where he probably feels satisfied, right? He's All-American couple times, and he doesn't place this year. He was a Big Ten champion. He got 2nd this year at Big Ten. So he made the decision, hey, I'm going in the portal, and I'm going to Oklahoma State, all within a pretty short period of time. So that one kind of made sense. And he was one where that wasn't a big surprise. The rumors were swirling towards the back half of the season, like, Hamady's going in the portal. He's going in the portal. For sure he's going in. And he goes in right away, and he transfers right away. So the writing was on the wall there. Couple other wrestlers that have gone in that are impact guys. You've got Chase Saldate and Caleb Fish from Michigan State. Both those guys, they've done 4 years at Michigan State. Presume they're about to graduate. Yaroslav Slavakuski is the only other All-American that has jumped in the portal. And yes, he is in the portal once again. He transferred from Harvard to Rutgers. He actually All-American this year. He was kind of a surprise AA this year for the Scarlet Knights. But he's jumping in the portal. And you've got 2 App State graduate transfers, Ethan Oakley, 133, Tommy Askey, 157, I believe. Those guys are in the portal now. And Evan Bachman from Utah Valley, another guy in the portal. He's also a graduate transfer. So a lot of people, and the transfer portal is a little divisive, and some people think, hey, you should just stick to where you wrestled, and you committed there, and you should stick with it and see it through. And then others are like, no, free, open markets, everyone should go everywhere. But I think generally people are like, transfers are okay to a point, but you don't like to see a little program, they develop a guy does really well, and then boom, one of the bigger programs poaches him. I think no one really faults the kids or the programs for trying to get better wrestlers, but at the same time, it's like, that's the one that feels a little ickier, right? Well, I think we're seeing less of that. I think we're not going to see as much of that this year because I think these graduate transfers, we're going to see less and less of those. These guys have done 4 years, and because of the COVID year, the 2021 year not counting, everyone's got all this has an extra year. And so they're graduating they're getting their bachelor's degrees, and it's not as simple. You think, oh, why don't you just go to graduate school there? It's not always that simple of a process because, one, do they have your graduate program, what you're trying to do? 2, can you get in? I remember there was a wrestler this was way before the portal. It was like 2014 or 15. And the guy wanted to go to graduate school at his institution, right? He had been a top 5, 10 guy, and he was trying to get in, he applied, and they tried to pull every string under the book to get into this business program. He could not get in. It couldn't get him in. So he ends up transferring to a different school, right? Those things happen. You don't really hear a lot about that. No one's talking about, well, yeah, I couldn't get into graduate school in my program. But some of these, you don't get in because you're good at a sport, right? It's more complicated than that. So the graduate guys, I feel like that's not in the icky category, right? It makes sense. All right, you got your bachelor's degree. Now you're looking somewhere else. That's not, your plan was to go here for a set number of years, and the world shut down and restarted up, and they came up with some stupid idea that 2021 didn't count for anyone, even though 2020 did, and people didn't get their NCAA tournament. Doesn't make sense. The world doesn't make sense, so I don't try to make sense of it, but it's just a reality. But next year is kind of the last year that's going to have that impact, right? Where those wrestlers that wrestled in 2021 should all finish up in 2025. So then after that, I think we'll see fewer graduate transfers because you don't have this extra year that's kind of jamming up the works. So I don't think the transfer situation is in a bad place. I mean, you should look. I'm not even talking about football and basketball, which are just the wild, wild west. Even college hockey. Someone sent me this thing. Northern Michigan has like 13 of 17 in the portal. Like, it's just, everyone is just jumping in the portal. It's just routine. So I don't think it's in that bad of a spot for wrestling. But here's a couple things to keep in mind. One, I'm going through this list, right? And really, the vast majority of these guys are of the NCAA qualifiers. Only Hamady is not a graduate transfer, right? So that's notable. I wanted to mention that, but I also want to mention May 3rd is the cutoff for going in the portal, right? So we're going to see more guys jump in the portal for the next couple weeks, and then it'll slow down. And then the only guys that can jump in the portal after that are non-scholarship wrestlers or graduate transfers. So those are the only ones that can jump in at that point in time. So we'll see maybe another uptick. So while I'm saying right now there's not that many, the ones that make you feel kind of weird transfers, it could accelerate, right? There could be more guys that end up jumping in the portal. Certainly there are, the new thing is to have your wrestlers on your team reach out to your, hey, you know this guy? Yeah, you went to this guy's club, right? Tell him to come on. Now, I don't know if that's happening, like in terms of like the coach telling the athlete, but the athletes are reaching out to other athletes and trying to get them to come on board. So there could be a little bit of that networking going on in the back end, and we could see more guys jump in the portal, right? But I'm not hearing many murmurs. There is one guy who, if he takes his next year, will have to go in the transfer portal. That's Wyatt Hendrickson. But that one is really complicated. Now, if you don't know Wyatt is like one of the most successful bonus point wrestlers we've had in a long time. And he's a heavyweight for Air Force. He's been third the last 2 years, I believe. And he's going to be working, what he has to do, he can't do another year at Air Force no matter what, even if he wants to. You only get the 4 years there. So he has to get basically permission from the Pentagon. Literally, the Pentagon is involved with this. So it's a little more complicated, and it seems, just kind of talking around it, it seems like kind of a long shot that he would even get that opportunity if he wants it. So I don't know what the plan's going to be with Wyatt, but he's really the only other big chip that I'm hearing about right now that could jump in the portal. But things change, things move quickly in wrestling, and we'll see what ends up happening. What are your thoughts on the transfer portal? Do you feel like it's in a good state right now? Do you feel like these guys should stay? Should they go? Where do you land on it? I think we're in a pretty good place with it. I don't feel bad about it. I like transfers for most circumstances, and I like that the athletes have the opportunity to leave and teams can improve their standing. But I want to know what you think. What are your thoughts on the transfer portal?